Local news. Sometimes it's hard to identify. Sometimes you know what it is right when you see it. But how is news gathered, crafted, and delivered? When a local TV station puts together a story that lasts a couple minutes, there is a process, but sometimes that process is more interesting than the story itself. We're going to tell you the behind-the-scenes little nuggets that don't make it to TV. We are bringing you the people on the front lines in the action in a different light. This is Jay Wallace. Welcome to KVUE Off the Airwaves. One thing about local news, the work schedule, it fluctuates. And unlike the capacitor of Doc Brown's invention, time is something we can't always manipulate. News doesn't operate on a 9-to-5 basis. We try to have effective coverage for as much of the day as possible. People who work in this business have to sacrifice things like family dinner, soccer practice, even their weekends. So when longtime 10 p.m. news anchor Terri Gruca was asked to move to a dayside schedule, it opened up a whole new set of possibilities and opportunities she hadn't previously had. Our conversation today covers her love for family, passion for local news, and what it means to be a working mom in the news industry in 2018. Terri, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. Where did you start in the business?
In North Carolina.
North Carolina.
I started in the Raleigh area. I had kind of an interesting beginning because everybody tells you got to start in a small market.
Right.
And I was interning at WREL, which was a family-owned, still is a family-owned station, one of the few in the country. And I started out as an intern working the morning shift.
What was your position? What were you doing as an intern?
I ripped scripts for the anchors back in the day when that was something to do. It was when they still had like the perforation, and you had to take the perforation part off. Those were really old,
right?
old printers back then, and separate them. And I would write stories for the morning show, and it was a really great experience.
What were your hours then?
I think back then I had to be in at like 4 a.m., which
similar to my shift now.
Yeah.
So you know those crazy hours.
When you're going to school, that's early.
Yeah.
And so I would do that before I went to classes.
So the internship turned into a job?
It did. I ended up, when I was getting ready to graduate, I was interviewing at stations across the country and wanting to be a reporter. And my boss came to me and he said, we kind of need somebody for our Fayetteville bureau, which was south, and it covered Fort Bragg and Pope Air Force Base. They were some of the biggest military installations in the country, and they were having a tough time filling that slot. And he said, would you ever want to be a one-man band, which is what everybody is now.
Right.
So you did it all.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, sure. And he's like, well, why don't you set up a story, shoot it, edit it, and then we'll see how it goes. So I did. I set up my own story, shot it, edited it, handed it in, and sat and waited. And I thought, okay, you know what? I guess I'm not going to get it. I've got other opportunities in other markets. 2 weeks later, he comes to me and he says, we'd like to offer you the position. I was this young college kid that they were hiring in a market that they had no business hiring. I mean, honestly, they had no business hiring.
And so when did Austin, Texas, when did that come in the picture for you?
Not till many years later. I tried to get to Austin. I left Raleigh, went to Knoxville, and tried to get to Austin from Knoxville.
Why'd you want to get to Austin?
Honestly, the station's reputation, I knew nothing about Texas, knew nothing about Austin, but I knew about KVUE.
Right.
I had heard and followed their stories. There were great storytellers here, wonderful photojournalists, and it just seemed like a cool place to work. And sent my tape back then and didn't even get a call back. Ended up in Minnesota.
Okay.
Which I thought
a little bit colder than Austin, Texas.
I thought I would never go to Minnesota. I'm like, I would complain about it being 30 degrees.
I'm with you.
And I was in Minnesota 5.5 years.
I don't know how you did it.
And then came here.
Yeah.
Couldn't wait to get south. But again, had never been to Austin.
Yeah.
Just knew KVUE's reputation and couldn't wait to get here.
Obviously, a reason that a lot of viewers connect to you and relate to you is you're a mom, and you're a mom to some younger kids, and how do you balance doing this demanding job that sometimes can have crazy hours and, making sure you're at home doing what you need to do for your kids?
I come from a blended family, so I have my husband has 2 children and I have 1 biological child. And so we have 3 little boys and together. And about a year ago, my bosses kind of came to me about changing my schedule. And
so what was your schedule before?
I would do the evening shift. So I would come in at 2 and work until 11. And it was, it is the cream of the crop schedule when you're in TV. It's you
Right.
want to be on those main shows. You want to do the 5, 6, and 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was what I'd worked my whole career for. It was a tough thing as a journalist to face that, honestly. The career side of me felt like, what am I going to miss if I'm not there at 6 and 10? And then I look at these little boys that I have at home, and now I work 9 to 6:30.
Right.
And I get to be home. I get to eat dinner with my kids. I get to take them to basketball practice. I get to watch their games. I get to tuck them in at night. I get to do prayers with them at night. Nothing will ever compare to that. And when I knew it was the right decision was when the boys came to me, and in their prayers at night, they would say, "Thank you, God, for not having Mom do the 6 and 10 every night.
Oh, wow.
We love having Mom at home." And as my mom said, those moments are fleeting. Your kids are going to be up and out of the house in no time, and it just flies by. And she said, no one, when they get older, wishes they had worked more. They wish they had more time with their family. And I know I won't get those moments back. So I am grateful that my bosses saw a need. I mean, they knew I would struggle. I would get off the set at 6 and I would rush home, and I would.
So you would, that's what I was going to ask. You would go home and kind of in between the 6 and 10?
I would rush home and I would try to do prayers and tuck them in. And bedtime was just this flash. And everybody felt stressed. Mom's got to get out the door. She's got to be back at the station. She's got to be out the door by 8:30. And I never felt like I was giving what everybody needed. I felt like
you have your job and you have your other job being a mom. And was it almost like you want to be the best at both, and you felt like both were suffering with the schedule?
I definitely felt that. And I felt I couldn't get everything I needed to get done here at work. I couldn't get everything I needed to get done at home. So I felt like my house, my kids, my family was a mess. I felt like my work life was suffering, that I wasn't giving the attention that I needed to the people that I work with, that I care about here. And I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I would get home at 11:30, and I would either write a story in my bed while everybody's sleeping, or I would try to get some sleep, and then I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning taking everybody to school again.
And so, like, even beyond doing these things well, it sounds like it was tough to enjoy it too, because you were on such a strict schedule, I guess, right?
And in the end, I'm a mom, and I want to be there for my kids. I want them to know that dinner time's important for us. We don't do electronics, we don't do TV. We sit down, we talk, we connect. Family time's important, and I know that right now the kids enjoy having me around. There's probably going to come a time where they're like, "Ugh, really, Mom?" You know?
Right. In terms of journalism in any type of field, is that something, if your kids are interested in it, would you want your kids to maybe follow your route in a way? Is that something that you would like, or does it just depend on what they like?
I'm hopeful. My kids are much smarter than me. They are really smart. I mean, we have 2 first graders and 1 third grader, and I'm amazed at the level of their reading and their writing and their science knowledge. They teach me stuff. Okay, so this morning, one of the lessons I learned was the boys. They asked me how many stomachs a cow has. Do you guys know?
Oh, gosh. I don't even want to answer because I know I'm going to be off. 4?
4. I didn't know that. No, that was good.
Oh,
I had no clue.
I had to rattle my brain, yeah.
So, I mean, just little things like that, that they'll teach you things about. And I just find it fascinating that they have an interest. They love science. They love building things. They're really good at Legos. So my hope is, I mean, I would support anything they want to do. I think the great thing about my family is they were really supportive. My parents, neither one of them was a journalist. My dad was an accountant, and my mom was a teacher.
I was the exact same.
So
I'm right there with
funny?
you. Dad accountant, mom teacher, and I'm a journalist.
Yeah, and so, but they wanted me to follow my dreams, and my hope is that they will follow their heart and find something that excites them and gets them excited to go to work. Because I don't feel like what we do is work. I get a lot of enjoyment out of it at the end of the day, and I'm not thrilled with every story that I do.
Well,
but
every job has a bad day.
Sure.
But it's about you don't want to have a bad month, a bad year. If it extends, then, but you know, if you can look back at the year and enjoy it, that's at least how I look at it. I agree with you.
Too.
And it's, you get enjoyment out of it.
I love what I do. And I think, it's funny because I used to be the young one in the newsroom, and now I feel like the old mom, the old crotchety mom sometimes.
Old. No, the younger
the
mom.
Newsroom.
No. Come on.
But it's interesting how your role does change over the years. You know, I've been in journalism since the 90s. And so, 20 some odd years on you guys.
Yeah.
But it's fun to feel like you can still have an impact and make a difference.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're much more comfortable and enjoying your balance now. And what would, for a mom in any field, not just journalism, what type of encouragement would you give for just a mom kind of struggling? Because you're on both ends. You struggled at one time and you feel like you're in a much better place now. What's the type of encouragement you would get to a mom trying to make that balance happen?
Probably the same advice that moms give to me, because there are still days when I struggle. Friday, I was going to bring cupcakes to my son's class. He was turning 7 Sunday.
Yeah.
And I always bake cupcakes and usually try to bring them for lunch. And I'm lucky with my new schedule that I'm allowed to do that. But on Friday, I had to do the midday show, and that was his lunch hour. And I couldn't do it. And I struggled. I mean, I felt terrible because when the managers called me, they needed me. And of course I said, yes, I'll be there, Yeah. And I talked with my son about it beforehand and said, hey, look, I made the cupcakes. I'm not going to be able to make it for lunch. Mm-hmm. Are you okay? And he's like, oh, Mom, it'll be fine. My birthday's not till Sunday. And we had a bunch of stuff planned with the family and everything.
Yeah.
But I had that mom guilt.
Sure.
And I had so many moms reach out to me. I posted a little video, and they were so kind and so supportive. And we all struggle with those same things. You want to be there for everything. I want to be there for the field trips. And you know what? I can't. Mm-hmm. I'm a working mom, and my job requires me to be here. And I can't be there for everything. We have conversations about that as a family, and I think that's what I would encourage people to do, is to have those open conversations with your kids and explain. I think it's good that my boys see me working. Yeah. I think it's important for them to have that in their life. I also need balance. I need that work-life balance. So I am going to sneak away at times, and our bosses are great about that. There are times when I'll take a half a day so I can take them to the dentist's office, to get their teeth cleaned. Yeah. Or to just go and hang out with them, take them out of school for a day and just be a mom and just play. I think you try to juggle the best you can. And some days you hit the mark and some days you don't. But be forgiving of yourself and know that you're not judged on one day's work. I had my son the other day. I say prayers with them at night, and I said, I typically say, dear God, make me a better mom, a better wife for my family. And I tucked him in, and he goes, Mom, every night you ask for God to make you a better mom, and you can stop because you are the best mom we could ever have. To hear that from your kid is, you can't put a price on that. Yeah. And it was, unprovoked. I didn't ask that. Those are the moments that I will never, anticipate and make every day better because they feel that. He didn't care that I wasn't there for cupcakes. He likes that I'm around.
You're making me want to go tell my mom how much I love her, because I want to make sure I can
do that.
I will. I really will. But thank you for dropping by. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, if you like what you heard on KVUE Off the Airwaves, check out our daily newscasts. Daybreak from 4:30 to 7, midday at 11, KVUE News at 5 and 6, the night beat at 10, and anytime on KVUE.com.